So today we'll be going over how to make vegetarian grape leaves. I will show you guys a step, it's only one extra step where you can actually add lamb or beef into it in case you do want to go ahead and make this a meat dish. I myself am a vegetarian, so obviously there won't be meat in mine. I will also have a fun review of the Dolma roller, the grape leaf roller that I actually just got. I've never used it, so it'll be a learning experience for both of us. I also just want to give a little disclaimer here. To me, these are authentic, and meaning I grew up in a Middle Eastern household. My father came over here, so I was first generation, came to the United States. My mother is American, so we had a blend of food that we did eat in our home. And as I got older, obviously you experience more foods in different regions of the Middle East. So this is just the way I make it, my family influence. So please, I understand some regions don't make it this way. I understand you may not think this is authentic. That's okay. Do what you like. And I do even talk about that in there. You can exclude or include any flavor profiles or herbs you really like into these. And if you have any questions, concerns, anything like that, go ahead, leave them down below. I'll try to get back to you guys as soon as possible. This is what you're gonna pretty much need to make the vegetarian grape leaves, dolma, whatever you want to call them. You're gonna need a jar of grape leaves. It doesn't really matter the brand. Out here, this is now the only brand I can really find in the part of Texas I live in. Unless I go all the way down to the city, which I don't often do. So just any brand you can find, unless you make your own, which you can YouTube and Google how to make your own grape leaves. They taste delicious when they're homemade. Typically about 2 to 3 lemons. These are pretty juicy, so I just have 2. Some olive oil, any brand that you and your family really enjoy. We really like this one. We also use the organic one from Costco, but this is just the one I have on hand. I like using typically fresh mint. I didn't have any right now because my garden hasn't started yet for this year, but I have my last year mint. Actually, this is from like 2 years ago from back in Chicago. The mint my grandma brought overseas and planted in our home there. What I used to do is just pick and dry it, and then, during the winter months I have, homegrown mint even though it's dry. Long grain rice, you can use basmati, you can use short grain, long grain, really up to you, the flavor profile. I do like it with basmati, but traditionally how I ate it with my family was with long grain or short grain rice. So that's what I'm doing for you guys today. Salt, I use the pink Himalayan, doesn't really matter. Allspice, typically we would do a spice mix that you can get at a lot of Middle Eastern stores, but allspice kind of works to give you that flavor profile, so it works fine. Pepper in here, I never use this kind of pepper. I usually use the freshly ground pepper, but because we're mixing it into rice, we want it to really blend and be cohesive and not really stand out, kind of like the pepper grinder. But it's really up to you. Potato, this is just going at the bottom of the pan, so it doesn't really matter. Just a big enough potato to fit, cover the bottom of your pan. Onion, probably like a medium size. Then in here we have tomatoes. I just have some Roma tomatoes that are starting to get a little bit softer, so I'm gonna use those. You can use canned tomatoes if you prefer, but these are just getting soft, so I wanna use them up. I have a good bunch of dill in here, fresh dill, and parsley. So that's the way I make it. Really, you can exclude certain things. Some people will also add cilantro. Some people will not do dill. It's really up to you and your family what you guys like. And then over here I have some optional ingredients. So this is actually what I make with my spices that I have. I make my own, pretty much what I use in meatless, which is upside down chicken. So I'm going to actually probably use this instead of the allspice, just because we really like this flavor. It has turmeric, allspice, cumin, coriander, cardamom, just a ton of different spices, and that's what I'll probably just use in place of allspice. We also like our stuff a little bit spicier, so either sometimes I'll throw in the red cayenne or smoked paprika. I also put over here as optional the actual pepper grinder if you like the bigger chunks of pepper. And then I'm vegetarian, so I don't use chicken stock, but you can use chicken stock. It would taste even probably better. Or vegetable stock. Or you can just leave this out and cook the grape leaves in your big pan in just some water, lemon, and a little bit of oil and salt. It's really up to you. Some people preserve the grape leaf juice when they drain and clean those. So this option is also optional. Over here I have all my veggies and, you know, herbs, whatever you guys want to call them. You can choose to go ahead and just chop these up very finely. I do that a lot of the times, but just today for time reasons, because it's already getting late, I'm going to go ahead and just use this little food processor here, kind of show you how I do it, to kind of take a shortcut. For this step, we need to go ahead and soak our long grain rice for about, I'd say half an hour in warmish water. So far I have about 2 cups of rice. I would say about 2 cups of rice, 2.5 maybe is about 1 jar. I'm probably going to use about 1.5 jars just because I'm cooking for my family and my cousin, and you know, so he has some too. Trying to get it pretty warm. If you have a kettle, you can do it that way. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna put enough water in here to kind of soak the rice and just kind of leave it for half an hour. Waiting for your rice to soak, we can go ahead and start seasoning our veggie mix here. So first thing, I have about 1/8 teaspoon smoked paprika. It gives it just a little bit of that smoky flavor. About 1/2 tablespoon of the ground pepper. It seems like you're adding a lot of spices, but in reality, you're putting this with tons of rice. So this is 1/2 tablespoon of salt. You're gonna actually be adding a little bit of salt too later on, but just so you know. Here is a tablespoon of my spice mix. If you don't have this, obviously, what you can do is just do a little bit of, I would say, allspice, a little turmeric, a little coriander, and I would say that's probably about good enough to kind of mix it up. Some people just do a little, you know, cumin, things like that. You can kind of Google or, you know, see what kind of spice you would prefer. And then this is about 1 tablespoon of my dried mint that I kind of just crushed up. And then I have over here my lemons that I juiced. I have about 1 cup of lemon juice, so I'm gonna pour, I would say almost all, like leaving about that much, like less than 1/4 cup. And then you're just gonna go ahead and mix this all up while we wait for our rice. So I rinsed the grape leaves with some water. I'm just letting them air dry. I also start kind of stacking them into neater piles so that when I go to start getting them prepped for rolling, because if you see these little stemmies, they need to be cut off. And some of these are huge, so we'll cut them in half, but we'll get there. This brand is also pretty salty, so that's why you want to be cautious of your salt. You may even just want to try one raw, like, well, they're not raw, they're boiled, but just like eat one. Actually, they're really yummy to me. But these ones are really, really salty, so it's really important you give them a good wash, kind of let them dry. All right, so our rice has drained pretty well. I've let it sit for a couple more minutes, just kind of draining out the little bit of liquid left, and we're just gonna pour it all right in there. And I also, while this was kind of just draining, I peeled and sliced our potato. There is no rhyme or reason how, you know, you cut this, as long as it's kind of in strips, so I guess there is. But it needs to just cover the bottom of the pan because it's going to prevent our grape leaves from burning. I don't ever eat these, I just end up tossing them, but it's really up to you. And then we also want to make sure we're adding a good amount of olive oil to our mixture. I would say about 1/2 cup, Seems like a lot, but it's what actually gives a lot of the moisture to the grape leaves as well. And then we're just gonna stir this up. And then once you have this all stirred up very well and incorporated, which I kind of need 2 hands, so finish this in a second. The next thing we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna start getting these prepped. So I would, if I were you, if you're making grape leaves in this quantity, first, be comfortable. Second, if I take off my rings just because I don't want like the salt and everything messing them up, because you're gonna be here a while. So I actually, as funny as this sounds, this has nothing to do with the cooking. I bought this island from Wayfair, so it's like movable. So instead of getting kitchen cabinets over there, we bought this so I can pull it out. I have my little TV set up there, and I bring in my little chair in here, and this is what I'm gonna do for the next probably 2 to 3 hours, depending on how well that little roller works. Okay. So if you look, each one of these has a little stem piece. So I just make a big bowl of them and then put it over here. So as you see, that one's pretty big, so we're gonna probably end up cutting that one in half. But this is just what you go through and do it to each. And then any ones that you come across that are ripped, those ones are great to line the bottom of the pan and top of the pan. So just kind of hang them out on the side of your pan, and then just kind of line on top of the potatoes, and I'll show you here in a second what that looks like. And then just make sure you have a few extra. I'm definitely not gonna probably need the full 2 cans. Jars of grape leaves. I'm probably only gonna need about 1.5 jars. So the other ones I'll actually throw back into the jar and keep them on hand. Oops, see, that one I just really ripped. Oh yeah. So he's just gonna go sit on the pan until I need to top the pan. All right, now I am gonna just show you really quick, and I'll just show you with him kind of how you can roll. So we have our mixture here in the bowl next to us. Give it a good mix since it's been kind of sitting and marinating. We're gonna take a little scoop, and that actually might be a little bit too much, but it's okay. Kind of center it. Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit too much, but and that's a grape leaf. And I typically will just make a bunch of them and then start putting some in the pan. Some of these are smaller. That's okay. So this is just how you would roll them by hand. And I like mine super tight, like, oh, that one is not tight enough. So I'd go back in and make it tighter. It's just because it's a little one. There we go. So we have the grape leaf. First we adjust this thing, tuck it. Tucking your grape leaf very lightly. You don't have to like push it all the way in. Then depending on the size of your grape leaf, you just put a little bit of rice. And then you get this. This one's like really loosely rolled again. I don't know why it doesn't roll them so tight. Like the first couple it did. I think it's all good. I'm gonna add the remaining lemon juice we had. I'm gonna add a little bit of olive oil. Just a little splash of it, and then a little sprinkling of salt, very lightly, because like we said, you know, it has lots of salt in the grape leaves. Now we have the flame set to high, and we put a weighted plate on here. That way it can kind of hold them down so they don't break apart. And once this gets to a boil, we're gonna cover it and kind of let it boil for 30 minutes. And then we're gonna turn it down to low and let it simmer and just kind of cook for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. All right, so this is the finished product. It kind of looks gross on bottom because some of them did explode on bottom. And then there's like potato pieces still. I wanted to show you guys, so this is why we put the potatoes on the bottom. You can see how like that would have gotten burnt, and you can see on like the actual potato itself, you know, they burn quite well. And then obviously you take off all the junk grape leaves, and then you're left with this big batch. Now, it does taste delicious right now, hot and, you know, good. I like to refrigerate mine, the vegetarian ones, for, you know, a few hours. Then I top them with Greek yogurt and lemon. I totally forgot to tell you guys about the meat, and I just realized that if you did want to add meat to these, and actually my fiance does eat meat, so what I'm going to actually do is make up some meat on the side. You would want to cook it and then just put, you know, I usually just do some garlic, a little onion with the meat, or just the meat itself, and then drain all the fat and put it in with the raw rice mix. And that's when you would put it in, so it would be in your grape leaves. If you're not a vegetarian and you want to, you know, not have it in here because you want to eat these cold, maybe as an appetizer, go ahead, take your lamb or, you know, ground beef. I buy like the Costco ground beef grass-fed one. I take a bunch of garlic and saute it down, and then I just serve it on the side. So we put grape leaves, then I kind of mash them down for him, put that garlic meat, and then some yogurt on top.